I'm back, and I added that other slide. I can't even believe it wasn't my first one, to be honest. And this one is tithing. This is the others were really ways that we accessed money and interact with money. Tithing is money we already have access to and what we're doing with it. So it's kind of a little bit different. It's probably why it didn't occur to me in the first place, but I think it's important nevertheless. As Christians, we can't be talking about Christians and money and not talk about tithing. I went all the way back to before, it became a thing about 10%. I went all the way back because this 10% tithe thing has become such a big conversation in the church. And there's another version of it called sowing and reaping. And people, certain preachers will give you the impression that if you sow into their ministry, and God's going to pay you back. And I'm not going to get into that conversation per se, because there are some who have their ministry and there's some who are just running God's ministry. So I'm not going to really get into that too much. I want to go all the way back before this 10% became written into the code, where the Jews, who were very legalistic, started to from a legal perspective with their relationship with God, were exacting about this 10%. I want to go way back to where it truly began and where, for me, is my tithing experience. And it has to do with love. It has everything to do with love. So we're right back to Genesis chapter 4, verses 3 through 7. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offerings, but for Cain and his offerings he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his face fell. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it." This is the ESV version, and if you read from another version, it does read a little bit differently. But in a nutshell, guys, this is Cain and Abel. That's Adam and Eve's first two children. And this is long before there was any rule. There were no laws yet. The laws came when Moses went and got the 10 commandments. There were no laws before then. Okay. So here we have, well, there are no laws from God anyway. So here we have this experience. Now, Cain and Abel knew God. God had, there's no question. Adam and Eve knew God. They knew him personally. They used to walk with him in the garden. So even though they're no longer in the garden anymore, they still maintained a relationship with God, which clearly they passed on to their children. So their children had a relationship with God, and they understood the value of acknowledging God in their life as a resource. It was just a thing. This had nothing to do with the law. And this had everything to do with understanding our relationship with God. He's the source. He's the source of everything. He put us here. We just came and found it. That's it. And so these two brothers, based on their relationship with God, Cain didn't have a very good relationship with God. Cain took it for granted. Cain was just doing what Cain does. And Cain's like many of us, I'll see what's in my wallet and I'll do that. I'll throw that in the pan, as if you're doing God any favors. And Abel loved God and wanted to show God that he loved him. Honestly, guys, for me, tithing has nothing to do with any legalistic anything. This has 10%, 5%, 2%. It really has nothing to do with anything. For me, I tithe because I understand that God is my resource. And I also want God to understand that he's my first love. And so top of the money, first thing, before I make the bills paid, that's how I do it. And that didn't come naturally. And that wasn't always the way it was for me. It is the way it is now. And I'm praising God for that. And here's the thing. This is long before there was law, there was love. And long after the law, because we're living, the law doesn't control us anymore, but love should. And so that's why I went back to this time, and there's some people say, well, this is the Old Testament. Guys, this is as close to God as you can get. This is as close to God as you can get. All right. This is like right out the gate. And these boys understood that they needed to acknowledge and just say, hey, God, thanks, and they understood that. And it was their relationship with God, the way that they understood and appreciated God is how they showed it back. When you love somebody, you will go out of your way to let them know you love them. And when you're like, I just have to do it because, it's Christmas, I got to give a gift. That will also be clearly demonstrated as well. And that's why I chose this particular passage, because I felt like it captured the real concept of tithing. Okay. And God is there was no law telling them to do this. They just knew to do it. And here it is. When Cain brought this token gift, like God had, this kind of, I'm doing you a favor, just take it. This, you should be glad kind of an attitude. God says, if you do well, and if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. If you do well, you will be accepted. If you do well, guys, excellence in what we do. And excellence is what God expects of us. And if you're giving God anything less than excellence in your execution and in your gifts, you are having sin crouch at your door. But God also says you must rule over it. Without even talking about salvation, right here, he's already telling us that there's sin and our ability to decide right here. We already had a bad choice made in the Garden of Eden. Here it is. They're still faced with the same dilemma. Here are choices, and you have the power to make the right choice. And it says, why are you angry? Can you imagine? You give this little poof of a gift, and and God has a nerve to be angry. God should be what? Glad that you gave him your little 2 tokens? Huh? Are you kidding me? And so Cain understood very much that God was angry with him and had the nerve to be upset at God. And God said, why are you angry? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Satan would love to interfere with your relationship with God. Satan would love to steal the sparkle off of your love relationship with Jesus. And this is the easiest way for him to do it. Because remember, money can easily become your God substitute. And when you tell God that money is more important to you because you have not organized your life, you've not been a good steward to organize that God gets the first, you're going to give Uncle Sam his taxes due, and he will exact it from you. God is not exacting it from you. And if you're saying to God that he's not important enough for you to organize your finances to give him the top of the top, you're no different than Cain. And you're going to get what Cain got, which is God's displeasure. And you're going to feel it. You're going to know God is this. You'll be walking around with a sad face. And, we may not have the pleasure of God speaking directly to our face, but you may be walking around with a sad, depressed face because something's not right in your life. And it started right here. It started right here because your relationship with God is not your first love. All right, guys. So this was a series on Christians and money. And I do need to add back in tithing to this list. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so are the ways that Christians interact with money: wages, interest, debt, saving, lending, profit, tithing. Thank you so much for joining me. Trudy Behrman here. If you're watching this video and you didn't see one of the others in the series, please be sure to click back and watch all of them. And I am super simple to find, and I do look forward to connecting with you. And I will have a link resource for you to connect with me somewhere on this page. And I absolutely hope you will reach out and connect with me. Trudy Behrman here.